Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you how to make the magic triangle configuration with Open Directory and Active Directory authentication. Okay, let's jump into it. We've got our Mac server here, which is bound to our Active Directory, which you can see in here. I've just got mydomain.wan is my domain name. I'll show you the configuration on my server 2008. So in my Active Directory on my server, I've got an OU called students, where I've just got security group students, and I've got user 1234 and so on. And each user has their profile mapped to the shared drive on this server, which I've just shared as an SMB share. This is important if you want to get network home working correctly, because this is essentially your home folder that it's going to map to. Okay, so I've got my domain and I've got user $1, and then the place where it actually mounts it is under my C drive and data and students, and here is where it mounts all the users. Okay. Okay, and I've got two clients, iMac and Workstation 2, which I'm going to demonstrate on how they actually work in terms of Open Directory and roaming profiles, or network home as Apple likes to call them. Okay, let's just see our workgroup manager. Okay, in my workgroup manager I've got a student group, and in this group as the member I've just imported my Active Directory. If you notice my domain /students, they're just my Active Directory students group. So I like to import the groups instead of users, because it just keeps them keeps my workgroup manager a lot neater, rather than having thousands and thousands of users here. I'll just have groups here. For example, students. If you want, you could do staff, you could do accounting, finance, etc., etc. In terms of preferences, I've just got the network home as a login item and on the dock as well. So what happens is, when you log in, it authenticates to the network home, which we defined over here in our Active Directory. Once this loads up, so if we show you here, so this is our home folder, so that is what it will authenticate to in this setting here. Okay, so that's essentially the network home. It's pulling from the Active Directory. The other thing is, when you bind your clients to the domain, there's two things you're going to make sure. Let me just quickly check this out. Open Directory utility. Okay, so one thing is, when you bind your client to the domain, you have to make sure this force local home directory on startup is unchecked. What this does is, when you bind to the domain, if you notice here, you remember the users directory that we talked about, which is going to be on our network. These directories, or the home directories, it's actually going to make a local directory instead of that. So it's not. So at the end of the day, it won't really be a home directory. It'll be just a network directory. The other thing is create mobile account at login. What that does is, it's kind of like a syncing solution. So it'll make let's say for example you have a laptop, and what it'll do is it'll make a mobile account on your laptop. Essentially it's a user directory, and every time you connect or it sees the server, it'll sync everything within the directory. Ideally you don't want that either, so we leave those two unchecked, and that makes it easy for us to make sure that network homes are working properly. If you do have it just selected on one of your current configurations, you can just test this out by, if you just go uncheck this, and you might have to delete the users directory from the users folder. So you might have to delete the directories for the user that you have in here. But I'm not going to do that. Let's just jump straight into it. We've got our Active Directory users here. Let's see, user 1, user 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's go on our first workstation and log in as user 1 and password, and let's see what happens. So it is going to authenticate to our Active Directory. It's going to get the policies of the workgroup manager or open directory, and it's going to get our mappings or network home. Okay, so what we'll do is to test that it is working, we're just going to make a new folder on my desktop called Hello World. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the desktop background. I'm going to make a bit of customization here. I've just got the policies which disable that, so that won't be possible. Okay, let's just stick with folders for now. And what I'll do is, if I can, turn hiding on. Okay, so I've got hiding on the dock, so that's one of my user preferences. So now if I log out, and I'll log into my second workstation. So this is my iMac. I'll go to my workstation 2 and user 1 and password, and it should log in and it should have my folders on my home and the preferences. So my dock is hiding. The preferences obviously are stored in your network home directory, so meaning that any preferences that you change, or if you have the permissions to change it, as you can see in this case, I have not allowed users to change system preferences, that will be reserved. Okay, so if we go into here, and in terms of preferences, you could use Workgroup Manager to fully lock down it down, but in this case I haven't done that. The other thing I've had to do is I have to set NTFS permissions on the students folder to prevent students from accessing other students' drives, if you know what I mean. So when we go here, if you go into C drive, so I don't want user 1 to be able to see user 2's stuff, or I don't want user 2 to be able to browse to user 1's stuff, so I have to set permissions for that by default. Because NTFS permissions don't apply to Unix file folders, that wasn't working, so I had to do an explicit deny, which I did over here. I'm not sure if this is the correct way I did it anyway, but if I show you change permissions, so I've got students deny only on that folder though, so I'm still working on how to get that more refined. Okay, so that's it there. That's how it's working at the moment. I'm going to show you a setup video on how to get that set up. That will be on the next video.